Hello, everybody, and welcome to the show. It is fantastic again to be here. I love seeing you in the chat already. Fantastic to see everybody having a good chat and catching up of the week. Of course, last week's show seems like just yesterday. It's absolutely flown by, which is good, I guess. Is that a good thing? Hello to Anya, hello to Linda and Brandon and everyone else in the chat there. Great to see you. First thing, there's a couple of things to talk about before I bring on tonight's guest, and some things that are beneficial to you, some I'm interested in knowing. So let me get into that. How many of you, and if you put in the comments, not the chat now, the actual comments of the video, I'll give a Twitter shout out to your profile from the show. How many of you play or know of Wordle? Because it's something that I tried to do once or twice on the app. It stressed me out. I couldn't do it. But Wordle, okay, is the little word game. I'm sure you know about it. It's been sold to the New York Times for a 7-figure deal, which is absolutely incredible for someone who's designed a little app, especially about something so simple when you think about it. So if you use Wordle or you know about it, let us know how you get on in the chat, not the chat, sorry, the comments to the video. And again, I'll pick an answer out of there and I will put it on the Twitter page and give your profile a shout out. 7-figure sum for a little app. Fantastic. So apparently the creator is Josh Wardle, which is very similar to Wordle. So Josh Wardle, he made the app. New York Times has said they'll keep it free for now, so there may become a time when they put a price on that. So if you're going to get that game Wordle and you play it, download it now when it's free. But what a thing to do. So tomorrow is also the first Friday of February, Naked Work Day. I don't know how many of you want to get involved with that, but if you do, maybe speak to your boss first and make sure it's okay. If you're working from home on the webcam, make sure that's pointing up to the face and nowhere else, because that could get quite embarrassing. And something you may have noticed around the social media pages already over the past month, this show is now on Roku TV, which is incredible. That is a streaming service it's all over the world, but it's in America and it's quite massive in America. But thanks to the Win-Win channel and BritWin over there, they have put this show on there. So you can watch that right now as a on-demand platform. In fact, his channel, the Win-Win channel, it's all writing based, kind of very similar to this. And it's got this show on, it's got another similar show and writing kind of things on there. And it plays like a live streaming show where you can listen to music when you write. It's kind of cool. So go and check it out. Roku TV. That's kind of crazy and a great step for us. So I'm very happy with that. Let's see in the comments here. A few versions of Wordle. Didn't know about that. Yeah, it's definitely it's all over the place. Roku is big in the US. Definitely noticed that. Yeah, because I didn't know much about it initially. When I looked into it, it is apparently quite massive. So the WCCS is taking over the world. I wish it was, but I don't think it's quite there yet. Brandon says, congratulations, Christ. You know, that's a big step, but there you go. Fixed. Christ, Chris. Wow. Okay. And the last thing I'm going to say before we get tonight's guest on, this is for anyone who is a fantasy author at the moment, because that will change and there'll be more genres coming into this. But you all know, or you may know, Dale Roberts, who's been on the show before, Self-Publishing with Dale on YouTube. Absolutely fantastic channel. If you're a self-published author, go and check that out, because there's so many tips in there. It's incredible. The videos are fantastic. He is doing a massive giveaway. He's teamed up with Fiverr and many other companies to do this giveaway. And it's off the back of his book rescue feature. And that book rescue feature is all about picking up an author who's been out for a while. Their brand may not be as good as it could be. The SEO and all these good things could be improved. And they put a lot of money into fixing that up. And it's a fantastic book series and video series that you can check out and see the transformation they make with these authors. So this giveaway is at fantasybookgiveaway.com. So head over there if you're a fantasy author, or if you want to check it out if you're not a fantasy author. And they are giving away some great things. Let me just read off there. What is this? Book Rescue, sponsored by Fiverr, is a YouTube series devoted to helping authors in need while sharing invaluable insights for creating a professional and profitable author brand. This series follows along with struggling authors as they get much needed help from cover to author websites, social media, marketing, and beyond. So they really do help you in all areas if you get into this. The segment of the show where the awesome giveaway will be featured is the platform building segment. During this segment, we will work with 100 authors, as well as many industry sponsors to help dramatically grow all participants' platforms. Between all our current sponsors, the fantasy reader reach is already over 240,000 subscribers. So if that sounds like something that, jumps at you, head over to that website, read about the rest of it. And as I said just earlier on, there will be, that will expand into different genres as well. So it's certainly worth going and checking out that website now and just finding out what it's about, because it could be very valuable to you or to people you want to help out. So thanks for that, Dale. And, check it out there. So tonight's guest, second Irish author in 3 weeks, which is quite fantastic. And let me introduce before I ramble too much anymore. So tonight's guest is an Irish author who released her debut psychological thriller on 20th of January this year. I'm very interested to see how it's gone since publication, because it's already been optioned, which is fantastic. So I wanted to find out exactly how that was signed up and how that went, and as a debut author, how that felt. And there are actually quite a few Hannah Kings, by the way, on the internet, and there's another Hannah King author, so finding this person's information is quite difficult. She is a very secretive guest. She doesn't have an author website, which is again something I want to find out about. So this is going to be really interesting. So ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Hannah King. Hello, Hannah.
Hi everyone, thank you so much for having me. Nice to chat.
Welcome to the show, the Writing Community Chat Show. I'm very grateful for you to be here. How are things?
Really good, thank you. Yeah, bit of a whirlwind, as you say. It was 2 weeks ago today that came out, so it's life's been different already, even just with 2 weeks. And I haven't really done any like in-person things. I couldn't, with COVID and everything, couldn't really do that many in-person things, but it still feels like a lot has changed. So yeah, it's going really good. It's finally all happening after years of trying.
That's fantastic. So again, we'll jump into this very shortly and we'll look at maybe how that's all come around. But have you ever played Wordle yourself?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah? Are you any good at it? Because I'm not.
I love it. Am I good at it? I think so, because sometimes I'll get a word in my head after one and I'll be like, it absolutely has to be that. And even if it's not, it's fine. Just stick with it. It's such a simple, brilliant concept. It really is. There's one that you can do unlimited games on. It's like a similar thing. Somebody's just ripped it off, I think, but they've done like it, so you don't need to do just one a day. But 7 figures, yeah.
Wow, isn't it incredible?
Maybe making an app is the way forward here.
That's what I'm thinking. We're all working very hard trying to write books. It takes us months, and you can create an app that you have to write one word in, and 7 figures done.
Exactly. But what a game!
Wow. So you are from Ireland, as I said. Yes. Whereabouts in Ireland are you from?
From County Down, so about 30 miles south of Belfast.
There you go. What is Wordle? It's everywhere. So Halo, you missed the intro there. Wordle is an app that you've got to write a word. And simple as that. And Josh Wardle, which is his name, he sold it to the New York Times for a 7-figure deal this week. It's incredible news. So Hannah, let me play the first video, because I've already missed one. And then we will get into the road to writing and find out exactly how you became an author and what your inspirations were and all of those good things. So Hannah, where did it start? Where did writing start for you? What was your inspiration, and kind of do you remember kind of what age you got into this?
Literally, it feels like such a cliched answer, but like as soon as I could write, I really wanted to write stories. So I remember like primary school having exercise books just filled and having to ask for new like exercise books all the time in school.
Wow.
And as soon as I got my first little personal computer, I think I was in maybe my last year of primary school, and I wrote 2 like inverted commas novels on that, because I think when you're a child, the blank page is just, it's just possibility, and it's wonderful, as opposed to now as an adult when a blank page is obviously terrifying. But back then, yeah, there's so much that you could do with that, and I wanted to do all of that. So it really has been my entire life, and there was no backup plan. There was nothing that I was going to do if this didn't work out. So I'm very lucky and very grateful that so far it has, and I've got a good like first step onto what I actually want to do.
It's kind of interesting when you talked about back then and the differences now, because a lot of people maybe in your position in school now, they just pick up their phone probably, and that would be their life. So how many people kind of miss that boat because they're not thinking about kind of what you were doing with your creativity at the time?
Yeah, very much so. There's like slightly less. Obviously, it was only the early noughties and stuff, but I mean, there was still a lot less than there is now. And like kids have phones when they're like 6 now, so why would they want to do anything else? They have the entire world like in their pocket, so why would they want to do anything else? Hi, Claire.
And the other thing as well was I put a tweet out earlier that's kind of picked up really quickly about, do you write, or if you only could write longhand, would you? And you mentioned back then you filling your textbooks up. So is that something that you've carried on in your life? Do you still write longhand, or have things adapted to sort of laptops now?
So interestingly, She and I was written almost entirely by hand.
Wow.
On my breaks in work at night, and like I would type it up then at the weekend whenever I got home. And I quite like writing by hand because it means by the time it comes onto the computer, you're nearly doing your first edit then. So there's nothing on the screen that's too bad. Obviously, it still needs a lot of tweaking, but there is something really nice about just like free writing and just having a notebook that you can fill and fill. And it's more satisfying, I think, seeing pages that I guess you filled yourself.
Yeah. I guess you could say the same for a laptop, but wouldn't you feel kind of terrified that you could lose it?
A notebook, like something written by hand. I mean, I feel more terrified about the laptop. What if I click the wrong button and delete everything?
Well, yeah, I think a lot of things are in the cloud these days, so they're fairly accessible for multi devices. But I certainly would probably lose my notebook full of my stories. So
I'm so lucky that didn't happen.
Yeah, that would be awkward, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
So okay, so you went through school and you clearly had that bug and interest already embedded within you, and your stories were flowing. I mean, did those school stories ever develop into anything else?
Certain elements of maybe the first novels are definitely, maybe not so much in She and I, but in the piece that I'm writing at the minute, there's like, even if it's just like character names that I picked back then when I was maybe 10, things like that, or like a theme. It's more so in the second book that I'm writing at the minute. Certain things are definitely coming in because I can remember it so well. Like if I had to, I could probably sit down and write it from memory, because I remember I just like wrote it, and it was a lot of chapters, like maybe like 20 chapters, which is a lot when you're very young. I don't know if, it probably was garbage, but it doesn't matter. It was good practice, and it was good for getting the typing skills up, I suppose.
I mean, character names, is that something you've struggled with, going back to referring to using them again? Because it's quite a difficult thing for me.
They change a lot. So like character names in draft 1, I'll feel really committed to them, and then by the end I'm like, I hate looking at that. I'm like sick of looking at it nearly. And I'll go and like, I used to have a book of baby names sitting beside my bed that I would because I would look up like the meaning behind things. But I think that's more for maybe fantasy writers and stuff. I think that's really useful because I like knowing, oh, actually, did you know this fantasy name actually means this? And that's interesting. But for the kind of genre that I'm writing in, that kind of thing's not really relevant. But yeah, character names will usually always change before the second draft or the third draft.
There's a few things I think I struggle with. I mean, if I know somebody that's named that, their character influences the name instantly. And the other thing, like you mentioned with fantasy names, I think that's a completely different game, because obviously if you look at Lord of the Rings, you're not going to use a standard baby book to pick names out of that, are you?
Maybe if there was a 2022 book of baby names, people are calling their kids all of that stuff now, so maybe. But yeah, I feel like if I know someone that's called that, I can't like write any intimate scenes or any like serious scenes with them. I'm just thinking of this person. So yeah, I know what you mean.
So you went from school, then those stories kind of are still of an influence at some point. So what was the step post school to get into the world of writing, and did you have any connections, or did you know know where you were going, or was it completely, I'm blind at this, I'm going to just try and figure it out?
So much of it was luck, and I'm not just saying that. It was just really good timing and a lot of luck along the entire process. So I did my degree and my master's at Queen's, and after we were finished with the course, my tutor sent out an email. He was putting together an anthology of short stories and poetry and stuff, and he said, you know, if you want to be included, send in your suggestions, and I'll look through them and I'll put together this book. So I sent a story into that. It was lucky enough to be included, and this anthology came out. It was called Blackbird, and it was just 20 writers who at one point had gone to Queen's, and it was published in this like beautiful little book and kind of sent out across Northern Ireland and then to agents in the UK. And it was just pure luck, because an agent contacted me like maybe 3 months after that book came out, and she said, "Hi, I'm an agent in London. I'd be interested in reading your first novel if it's anywhere near done," because we'd had to write a biography for the back, and I'd said in the last line of mine, like something like, having recently overcome her literary commitment issues, Hannah is now writing her first novel. And it was true, but it was only a little bit true. Like there was only maybe a 1,000 words and a couple of like sketches on the rough draft, like handwritten. So I was like, oh God. But for me, knowing that someone was going to read it was the catalyst for everything else. Because I mean, obviously it's such an isolating process, because it's all either in your head or sitting alone in an office doing things. So the fact that I knew that at the end someone would read it, whether or not she liked it, whether or not she took it on, somebody was going to read it. So that for me, that was what kind of spurred me on. And then like 11 months later, it was written, and it all kind of spiraled from there. But pure luck.
That is an incredible story. I mean, how many people would have had that break? And I love the fact that you kind of, the old saying, fake it till you make it, and put in the, you know, finishing up your novel and all these things, and you know, that a London agent picking that up as well. What did you think when you had that contact? Did you think it was genuine, or were you know?
So obviously she contacted me through Queen's, which obviously that was the only way that she could. But I had left Queen's like 18 months before, and I didn't check my emails for it that often. And she sent it at the start of April, like the start of March maybe, and I happened to check my emails in mid-June, and I was like, oh no, I've missed this opportunity that's going to change my life. So I wrote her at like 4 a.m, this like massive email, like, hi, I'm really sorry. I don't check this email. I'm really sorry. It's like, is this real? Are you real? But she included like links to their website and stuff. And I kind of checked her out and was like, oh my gosh, this is real. This is real life. This is the start, hopefully.
So the question is, how much did that make you panic at the point? Or had you progressed your manuscript at that point to a bit more depth?
There was literally maybe 1,000 words on a page that I could show her. But because it was big time literary commitment issues, because I'd only written short stories until then, apart from those 2 novels whenever I was really young. Like I thought, yeah, the short story is going to be my style. This is what I'm going to stick with forever. And then I thought, okay, well, I've had this idea for She and I in my head for a long time. Maybe I'll try that. But it was so hard to get going. But as soon as I knew that she was going to read it, that was all I needed. I think I just needed someone to tell me they would read it. I think.
Yeah. So you had the story plotted down at that point, or were you kind of a pantser, plotter? How did that work out? Did you kind of think, I've got the story in my head, I'm going to go for it? And did they set a target date for you at that point when you had the contact with the agent?
So She and I, it sounds like such a cop-out, but I think so much of the writing process does happen before you put pen to paper. And I used to hate people saying that, but that's so true. And I knew what would happen in the book, and I knew who the characters were. It just wasn't done. So I think I gave her, I said I could probably be done by Christmas. And this was in June, and I think it was like 80,000 words done by Christmas, so quite a lot. But I ended up writing another like 60,000 words, and then I sent it to her the next June, which was fine. But she was so lovely, and I sent it to her on the Monday, and she got back to me on the Thursday and was like, "Yeah, let's talk. I like this." So
wow,
just luck and really good timing every step of the way. So I don't know how that happened. I've done something really good in a past life, I think.
Yeah, I've got to say that a lot of the authors that come on the show that are professional authors that have had a career, none of them ever hit the deadline. I got to think maybe one or two people said that, yeah, I hit my deadline, but generally they don't. So I don't think anything there to worry about. An amazing story. It really is. So looking back then, short stories, something that you advise people to get into?
It's something that the way I look at it is you could write 80% of a short story and decide, I hate this, it's not working, this isn't for me, and scrap it. And that's a couple of days of your life gone. But if you write 80% of a novel and then decide, no, this isn't working, that's months of your life gone. Short story is, it's just it feels like it's a totally different ball game entirely. Like even just because it's shorter, still has to do everything a novel does, still has to grab you the same way. Your characters have to be almost as developed. But I enjoy them, not more, but I definitely enjoy writing short stories. I like little like twisty things, like the short stories that Roald Dahl wrote for adults, like the little kind of weird. There's always like a weirdness. It's set in our world, but there's something that's not quite right. I've always really liked those, so I think that's what got me into the short story genre. But I haven't touched the short story since I started GNI.
It's an interesting transition. So going from your short stories into having to write something and giving yourself a deadline there, how did you attack that in terms of writing something big, a lot bigger than what you were originally writing for the first time? Did you have a structure there, or kind of were you almost winging that,
Kind of winging it. I did break it down into, so the she and I, for anyone who's read it, it's told from 5 different points of view. So the good thing about that is that if it's not flowing and you can't get through to one character, you can just switch narrators and say, oh, well, would that scene actually work better if this person told it? And that's very handy as a writer to be able to do that. So I'm glad that I worded it that way. But yeah, treated them as little like bites of scenes. And I always kind of think there's no rule that says that you have to write it in order. So there was no rule that said I have to write from the start and then get to the middle and then get to my end. So I ended up doing the very start, writing the very end, and then kind of nearly filling in the middle as I went. And I did it in little bites by hand. And then by the time it was the weekend and I was coming to type everything up, it felt much easier. It was a much easier process than sitting down once or twice a week. Obviously, I was working full time and saying, okay, I need to hit 5,000 words today and I need to do that. It definitely wasn't like that. The process wasn't like that for me for book 1.
Yeah. No, I loved one of the videos that we did was tips from authors of the community, and Tony Kent came on and mentioned that his tip, starting from the end, if no one's seen that, go and check the video out, tips from the writing community, starting from the end, the way he told that story is why to write from the end first, was fantastic, and it's a great tip as well. So once you've written your book and your agent is interested, the process was basically she wants a updated manuscript. How did that work? Or was it just, yeah, I'm interested?
Yes, so signed with her maybe June time, say, and we spent this summer kind of working on it together. There was just a couple of things that she thought, I think you could bring this character out a bit more. I think this scene is too long. I would want more of this part. So we kind of went back and forth over that summer of 2020 and worked on it together. And then I think by the first week of September, she was happy to send it out to potential publishers, which we did then over the course of September. And I was very lucky that Bloomsbury Raven were happy to pick that up. And then there was more editing, more proofreading. So, but it was really fun. It was so fun.
How different is the process of editing and proofreading from, say, the agent you are with and then Bloomsbury? Was there a big difference between the two?
Yes, so I think a lot of the things that we discussed between my agent and myself, if we weren't sure, we both kind of said, we'll wait and see what the editor says, because we'll just let them be the pro. And I'm so lucky I have a wonderful editor who, it's such a different skill to writing because they're able to look at every single tiny detail from way up on high and look at it in terms of the entire structure of the book, which I don't know about other writers, but I definitely can't do that. Like, I have to get into each scene to start editing it. I could never look at the chapter titles or something and then edit from there. But it was intense and really good. Like I said to them a couple of weeks ago, I learned more in 6 months just working through the editing process than I did in like 14 years of school and 4 years of university, definitely. And it's so like it's just really rewarding to see at the end, because I think she and I was like 100, maybe 140,000 words, but the one that's being printed is just less than 100. So there was a lot
Wow.
of cutting, and it's so much tighter, and it's just a much better book than it was. I'm so grateful that I got a really good team that were really into it and wanted to make it better and help me.
Certainly sounds like a supportive group, and that's only, as you mentioned, kind of developed you as an author, which is fantastic as well. So the big question then is, at what point did your novel She and I become an optioned story?
So that was the first week of January 2021. So just before Christmas, I got an email on like the 23rd or something from one of the guys at the agency, and he said, "Hi, I'm on leave, but I'm just letting you know, the first week of January we have a meeting with Firebird Pictures, because they're really interested. Someone there's read the book and they just want to talk about it and see how you feel about stuff." So that was a really nice early Christmas present, because even if they didn't end up taking it, it was just nice that they'd kind of seen some potential in it.
Yeah.
And then we had a meeting just after Christmas, I think, first week of January, and they made an offer to option it. So it's been optioned with them. Yeah, they're thinking, if it goes ahead, they're thinking maybe 6 episodes, and it would be a good kind of aimed at like younger adults, like maybe 20 to 35, I think is what they said or something.
I mean, that seems to be all the rage at the moment. We've gone from humongous TV series like Game of Thrones and The Walking Dead, but at the moment, especially in the UK now, we've got very short series, 6 episodes at a time, but people really respond well to that. Have you familiar with these episodes?
Yes, very much so. And I think there's a trick in releasing everything at once, because I think it's because young people don't want to wait on stuff, and I feel that totally. I don't want to wait a week between episodes, and I don't want to have 25 episodes in a series. Like, that's just not. I wouldn't start. It's too much of a task. Whereas like 6 episodes, maybe even 8 episodes, you can get into that. You can watch half on one night and half on the next night. It's doable. Yeah, definitely, very much. So I think that would work well for the story as well.
So you had the meeting about being optioned a week or two before the book release, then?
2021, so a year before the book was
released.
A
year before, sorry, the last year. Okay. So release day came around. How did that go for you? And, in lockdown still, was that a big impact?
Yeah, I was saying recently, like, all of the really wonderful things that have happened to me in the last 2 years have just happened to me in this little office by myself. But it was still really nice. Like, I kind of spoke with the people that were involved, the team that got it out, and we just like had a little drink and toasted it and stuff. And it was nice because I started getting messages from people that I've known, like from school and stuff, and then from strangers just saying, "Hi, I'm just letting you know, I've read your book, I really like it," or whatever. And the book actually came out in Australia like 2 weeks before it came out in the UK. So I've had like Australian bookstagrammers, who are now my favorite people in the world, Australian books, just sending really nice messages. And I think the writing community in general, online, like on Twitter and stuff, it's just so supportive. Like, everybody's just rooting for you no matter what, I think, which is really nice. And it's been...
I think we've teased this audience long enough for the people that don't know about this story. So what I'm going to do is play part 2 video, and then you can let everybody know what the story is all about, She and I. Have you got a copy with you, by the way? Because that cover is lovely and colourful.
Yes, I love this cover. I really do. The colours are just perfect.
They are really
like
complimentary.
I've got it actually here.
Yeah, I noticed on the poster in the background. Yeah, it's lovely.
Yeah.
Okay, so let everybody know She and I, what's it all about?
So, She and I is a psychological crime thriller, my debut novel, as you said. It's the story of Jude and Keeley, who are teenage girls who have been best friends since they were really young. And they wake up on New Year's Day after a New Year's Eve party with very little memory or hazy memories of what's happened the night before. And Keeley's boyfriend, Pete, has been stabbed to death. So half of the book follows the police investigation into what exactly happened. And the other chapters are kind of woven in with that. And they're flashbacks to important events in the girls' shared childhood, kind of showing you their relationship forming, because their friendship by the time the novel starts has become quite claustrophobic, and they're very close. And the novel kind of asks, how far would you go for somebody that you love? So the reader is invited to join the police as they try and work out what happened on New Year's Eve, and more importantly, why. So that's what the novel's about.
Fantastic. I believe it's Kieran says, reading this book at the moment and loving it. Fantastic. So when you mentioned earlier, you've written this from perspectives of different people. Why did you kind of take that approach to write this book that way?
So one of the key things in the book is perspective, and all of the characters see each other differently. Like the character of Jude, her mum narrates some of it, and the Jude that her mum sees is absolutely not the Jude that we see when the detective's interviewing her and stuff. So it's how we perceive people and how we treat that kind of thing. The multiple narrator thing, I like reading books that are from multiple points of view. I like seeing the same scenario from different viewpoints. I think there's room for putting in quite good twists when you do that. If you tell a scene and then at the end of the book you tell the same scene, but actually there's a little bit at the end. I like all of that, and I like flashbacks, and I just thought it would work much better if we could see these characters the way that everyone around them is seeing them, and not just from their own point of view.
Yeah, I think that's a really strong and valuable asset to do. But for someone that's watching that may really fancy writing in that style, because it is a very attractive way to read and to see even TV programs, what tip would you give them to kind of be able to attack that sort of format?
So I think the main thing is that each of your narrators needs to feel different. Like, you shouldn't have to look to the top of the page to see who it is narrating. It should be clear from line one. If you can do that, I'm not sure that I'm a pro in that yet. But you should at least try, I think, to make sure every narrator has just a little something that makes it totally clear. Okay, this is Jude that's narrating this part. I can tell that because of this, and this. It opens up a lot of opportunities. I think I'll probably always write from multiple points of view. I can't imagine just sticking to one person now after that.
Yeah. I imagine that might feel quite difficult to do after writing from multiple perspectives, trying to stick to the one person, because of the expansion and excitement you can put into that, because of obviously what you said about the mother seeing a character differently. I think is a really cool thing to do. So yeah, it might be quite claustrophobic, as you said.
Yeah, and I think it's actually a pretty good exercise, because the piece that I'm writing at the minute, it was intended to be written from one perspective, and just to kind of experiment, I was like, I'm just going to write this scene as if I was this character, and it actually turned out, do you know what, I could do a lot with this. So I think that might be a good exercise. Like, if you're struggling with a scene, just turn it around and do it from someone else, and then other things will become clear that maybe weren't before. But yeah, I'm definitely not an expert on that.
It's some great advice, and there's quite a few reviews on Amazon for this book. A few SARAH Pearse we've had on the show before. Not only beautifully written, but gripping and full of soul. That's great. And gripping, thoughtful, lyrical. It's got all the right shades of Tana French. This writer is going places, from Imran Mahood. This is fantastic feedback as well for a debut. I mean, how is that great for your confidence? How does that feel?
100%. Those started coming in maybe October, when I was starting to write book 2, and I needed those. I tell you, the comparison to Tana French is to date the biggest compliment that me or anyone else has ever been given. So yeah, definitely a big boost. Sometimes it is just good to have a little bit of encouragement and have someone say, "Hey, good job, that was good," especially from 2 writers like that who have done so well, like so unbelievably well. It means the world, definitely.
Okay, there's a couple more in there as well. There is something very engaging about the writing that I knew from the very first page that I was going to love this book, and did. Did you actively think about the opening of writing your book and how to keep people engaged? And if so, what kind of steps did you take?
So some of the only advice that I can remember from like taking creative writing courses was, we need to know why we're meeting these characters on this day and at this moment. So that's kind of one of the only things that I remember. And I knew from the start that I wanted to have a prologue and an epilogue, and that it would be the events of the New Year's Eve party that would kind of frame the book at either end, and then the story could be told in the middle. But yeah, I definitely knew I wanted it to open. It opens in the garage in the early hour. It's maybe 9 in the morning, and there's a dead body in the corner. And I knew that was like quite a powerful image that would hopefully encourage people to go, all right, okay, well, I would like to know how this guy got here. What's he doing? So definitely I knew that I wanted to open just with that image, and then the story could kind of come after that. And I like prologues. I really like reading prologues as long as they're relevant.
And so having the question there from the start, what's happening and why, obviously draws the reader in that way. Why did you choose New Year's Eve, by the way, for your scene?
So I think New Year's Eve and day is associated with new beginnings. Here we start again. Everything's going to be fine. Let's make resolutions. But to turn that on its head, these characters wake up on New Year's Day. What the hell is this? What the hell has happened? Where are we? What happened last night? So it's kind of turning it on its head. And we have the character of Jude's mom is quite a prim and proper woman, and she wants everybody to think her life is perfect. And the scenes of her waking up on New Year's Day are kind of juxtaposed with the girls waking up in the garage, because she's waking up thinking, what was my New Year's resolution again? And she's got her beautiful white living room and everything's perfect. And I kind of wanted to have that juxtaposition. So I think that was part of it. And I wanted it to be the winter as well, just for the atmosphere. And just because I felt like it would work better if everything was dark all the time.
Fantastic. So another one of your comments or reviews says, so twisty and tense, which is a great description, with brilliantly written characters. Do you have any tips for how to make a book twisty? And maybe one about characters as well?
So I mentioned Roald Dahl earlier, the short stories that he wrote for adults, and they are the definition of twisty. But I think another theme in my book is assumptions. So I think a twist works really well when actually, if you read it a second time, it's completely obvious the entire time. And I like making the reader assume something that's never actually been written on the page. So obviously I don't want to give any spoilers, but I think there's maybe 2 of those in the novel where you're kind of supposed to assume the whole way through, all right, this is what's happening. And then you get to a certain point, you're like, oh, okay. No, she never actually told us that. You're right. So I think, a twist works better when the clues have all been there, like hiding in plain sight nearly.
I think one of the best things I think I can remember in that sort of way was Behind Her Eyes. Have you read that?
No, I don't think so.
Oh, okay. That's my recommendation for you. I'll say nothing, and I can never spoil that for anyone. But it's one of the best twists I could ever. Even my mind could never even come up with this. But once you found it out, you instantly want to go back to the start, which is such an amazing thing to do as a writer.
Yeah.
So I think writing twisty is a good thing to do if you can do it. And the other thing was characters, brilliantly written characters. You mentioned how you see the story from different characters' perspectives, but how do you make a character impactful in your stories?
I'm actually doing a psychology for writers course at the minute, and it's been so interesting because it's just a different way of thinking about it altogether. It's thinking about the characters as if you're inside their brains, very much from the scientific, psychological side of them, and it's so interesting. So my tips for writing good characters, I think it's the more you explore them and the more you kind of draft them, the more real they'll become. And I think, I can't remember who it was, but a writer that I was reading about recently said, like, if you imagine your character in a restaurant and a waiter spills a pint of water over them, you need to know exactly how they would react. And if you don't know that, you don't know your character yet. And I think that's really good. I always try and I'll imagine my characters in the most random of situations. And I think with Jude and Keeley's characters, from the very start, I knew exactly how they would react to everything. So I think you have to know them inside out in all the boring ways, like what do they eat for breakfast, what do they do, what do they watch on TV in the evening, what do they do here, before you can write them into the interesting parts of your story nearly.
I love that idea of picturing them in certain scenarios. I think that's really good. Someone before on the show mentioned that they do literally a profile of their characters, with kind of like what they like for breakfast and stuff, but their hobbies and all these sorts of things. Do you go to that far or that extent?
I think I did at one point have a lot of A3 sheets, and like a word bubble, nearly like you would do in school, for each of the characters. And yeah, I think it would have been all those kinds of things. When you said that a minute ago, I thought you were going to say they suggested doing like a dating profile for them, and I'm actually thinking that would be really interesting if you made them
Yeah.
like a fake dating profile, because that would, you get inside their head that way.
I guess that's a really good tip as well. I guess it's just bringing your character to life and having a personality rather than just thinking of a name and a situation, because you get the ability to see which direction they take in the story as well.
Very much so.
Which is great, yeah. So in a minute, guys, what we're going to do in the last 15 minutes of the show or so is we're going to have some questions from you guys. But before we do that, I've got a couple more questions. Anya says, my mind went to Criminal Minds profile. Is that a thing? I don't know. I never heard of that. But yeah, there's plenty of ways to, I guess, dig into the mind of people. So you said you were doing, was it psychology?
It's called Psychology for Writers. It's a course that's focused on psychology, but with an emphasis on fiction. Okay. So it's just like a little course,
and is that an online type course people can take?
It's like it's just on Zoom every week.
There you go. There's something to check out, guys. Sounds good.
Highly recommend. It's very good.
Definitely. So in a minute, we'll have community questions, guys. Think of some questions for Hannah. Send them in, or for me, or for Hannah, or for both of us together. Think of any questions you want. Okay, so some random questions for you now. Not too random, but some of them. One of them, what are you most looking forward to lately?
In terms of writing?
Anything.
So I'm really looking forward to having draft 1, book 2 done, because it's caused me a lot more stress than book 1 ever did. Book 2 syndrome, they call it, I think. So I'm looking forward to that being done so that I can go back to the start, because you can't edit a blank page, so it just needs to exist at the minute. And at the minute, I think I'm on like maybe 60,000 words, so it's getting there, but I can't wait to make it better, because I know how I'm going to do that. I just haven't done it yet, and I can't wait to have like draft 2 in a really nice position.
Very interesting. Is book 2 at all completed to book 1? Connected, sorry?
It is set in Northern Ireland. It's not a sequel or anything. It's set in Northern Ireland. There might be a couple of characters that we recognize, maybe.
Fantastic.
That's all I can say about that.
and you mentioned there you were kind of struggling to get the second book out there, as in to where you want to be. Why is there a difference to why that is happening compared to book 1?
The pressure feels different, and I had always heard people say that, but it's very, very true. It feels like it's a different pressure. Pressure number 1 was like, oh, just need to get this out, but it had been ruminating in my head for 5 years or something, and I had the ideas, whereas this is relatively new. I've been thinking about it a lot for maybe a year, but this is the first time it's gone pen to paper. That's kind of why I chose to do that psychology course, because I was like, I'll just take all the help I can get, please.
I guess it is more of a the expectation to perform as good as the first book's there.
Yeah, and I mean, you read out those amazing quotes from SARAH Pearse and Nimran, and I was thinking I would like them if they could say really similar things about book 2, so I'm going to try really hard to make it as good, but it's still really fun.
Okay, and obviously it's early on in your writing career, but do you feel like there could be a direction change in terms of genre ever?
I can see myself going slightly more literary, but I think there has to be a murder. I'm just so interested in writing about murders. Can't see myself ever just giving that up. Yeah. So maybe going towards I would like to write longer books as well. Like it was so natural for me to write the really chunky first draft of She and I. But apparently, like it is obviously, it's going to be harder to sell a really thick book from a debut, obviously, and I understand that. So slightly longer, slightly more literary. I can see myself going in that direction, but there has to be a murder in it.
How in terms of an author that writes in the world of murder, how sketchy is your internet search history at this point when it comes to murder ideas?
So sketchy. I always say, like, don't judge a writer by their Google search history, because some of the really specific, and I have to be really careful because I use my work laptop a lot, and I'm thinking whenever I go to hand this back, if I ever leave, they're going to send the police to my house if they ever look at this. So because the specifics of some of the things you have to Google, like how long would blood take to congeal on this particular surface? How would this really specific gross thing happen? Yeah, very sketchy.
Yeah, there's some interesting ones in there. I'm sure, there must have been an occasion when the police looked into internet history at some point because of an author. There must have been.
100%. You
I
could write a book
imagine.
about that, actually.
Yeah,
Pretty good.
there's an idea right there. Okay, so if you could take any character from the world of fiction, and it is always open to TV, film, literature, whatever you want, and put that character either into one of your stories or into another story, what character would you take?
Oh, what a question.
Mm.
So we're watching Afterlife at the minute, and imagine if you took Ricky Gervais's character and put him in anything else in his really sarcastic, I don't care about life way. I mean, I would like to take him and just write a completely new story, because he's just so developed and so lovable and so funny. I would like to do that, or any of the characters in Gavin and Stacey. I mean,
Yeah.
I can't tell you how much I wish I'd invented even one of them, even half as good, because they're just all top. And there's so many places you can go with them, especially when it's funny. I'd also like to write something funny someday as well, to go back to that previous question.
I was going to say, what would you put, what type of story would you put Ricky Gervais into?
To get the best out of him, I feel like it would need to be something that was really, really awful, just to see, like, does that make him do a 360 if you put him in a really just the worst situation ever, or like a crisis?
I could see, his sort of character in a proper slasher horror.
Yes, something like that. Yeah, that's perfect.
When everything's falling around and he's just there, doing his thing.
Himself.
Yeah.
We'll speak to Ricky about it.
Well, there was a rally on Twitter not too long ago. People tweeting Ricky Gervais to come on the show, but he never saw it, I don't think. So one day he might look back and see all those comments, but who knows? Okay, so if you could take any story, again, TV, film, literature, and change the ending. Doesn't have to be good reasons or bad reasons. What ending would you change?
Oh, the ending. I keep thinking of like romantic 19th century things, and how you could just put the most bizarre, ridiculous ending on to see if anyone noticed. To see if anyone, or like with the longest book, like say like War and Peace or something really massive, and just change something on the last page, just to see how many people have actually read that the whole way through and been paying attention. That might be an interesting exercise.
Yeah, definitely. That's going to mess with their heads. What one person would you like to most go on? Would you most like to go on an adventure with?
Go on an adventure with Roald Dahl. Can they be dead? I've already given my answer, and he is. So
no, and I'll give you another question because you said that now.
Okay.
It's not an alive person with an adventure.
An alive person. Let's go on an adventure with.
It's all right. It's all right. You can keep the dead one. All right? No, what I was going to say is for dead people, the obviously old classic question of who would you have at dinner, dead or alive?
Yeah, so that's...
You could have 2 or 3 guests for that one. Who would you take to a dinner party?
Jennifer Saunders. Just
interesting.
For the crack reasons. I would have Roald Dahl. I'm taking him. Donna Tartt as well, because I would like to see what she gets up to in those 10-year hiatuses she has between books, and I'm going to ask her about it. I'm going to ask her what she does for 10 years between those novels.
Guys on the chat, remember to get your questions in, but also let us know what your top 3, or who would you pick for a dinner party, and 3 people, they can be dead or alive. Let us know in the chat so we can have a look at those. Okay, what was the last book or film that you watched or read?
So I'm in the process of reading The Alice Network by Kate Quinn. It's set during just after World War II, and it's about women being spies. I've only read like the first 40% of it, but it's very, very good. So it's called The Alice Network.
I've heard of that, but I can't think of why. Interesting. Brandon's asked an old classic for the show, Star Trek or Star Wars.
Will Brandon hate me if I say I've never watched either, or read either, or had any experience? Sorry, Brandon.
Wow. That is the first time in this show's history that no one's ever chosen the side.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I'll pick Star Wars then, but I haven't seen it.
No. Just stick to your guns there. I'm impressed. That's...
Impressed, really?
Big curveball there. Okay. quite a serious question here. What does literary success look like for you?
At the minute in my little life, this feels like literary success, and it's very small and it's very humble, but it's still exactly what I've always wanted so far. And I think it's a really, really good first step. So I think kind of no matter what happens with book two, no matter what happens with the future, I'll always have this kind of thing. I'll always have this on my door,
Yeah.
and that's okay. And this feels like success to me.
That-
Obviously, ideally in 5 years, if I was a full-time writer, or in like 2 years, if I was a full-time writer and I had 3 books that had done really well and all 3 had been optioned for TV and some of them had been on TV, that's obviously the ideal dream. But this does feel like success to me, and I'm really happy and grateful that it's come to this.
That's fantastic. And book one knocked, home run, knocked that one out of the park. So, all the best to that idea, and I'm sure you'll get there 100%. Brandon said, "Gasp! I just fell out my chair." There you go. Anya also says that's a great book. The Huntress, also by Kate Quinn, is amazing too.
Great. I've got some great book recommendations here from you guys tonight.
Yeah, definitely. By the way, Behind Your Eyes is also on TV, so you could watch it if you haven't got time to read it. Equally good. So where we are with the questions. I've got one more from me, guys. Then it's up to you guys. So send some questions in for Hannah. My last question is, what would you sing on a karaoke night?
I would sing Islands in the Stream, as long as I could have a partner to do that with. I wouldn't do it by myself.
I don't know that song. Is that a duo song?
Islands in the Stream, yeah. Like Kenny Rogers and Dolly Parton. Maybe you would know it if you heard it, for sure.
Okay, that would be my homework then.
But yes,
I've got it. Yeah. So I will look into that one. Okay, so one more little section of the show where they got 7 minutes to go. So you got 7 minutes of questions, guys, if you can send them in. And here's the video. So we have 2 questions from Karen, being greedy Karen. No, not at all. Hi, Hannah. Do you have many more ideas for novels in the future? Who are your favorite writers and why?
Great questions. Thank you. Yes, I have in the notes app of my phone, I have like 5 like detailed paragraphs of these are 5 novels that I would like to write in the future. This is the character and this is more or less what's going to happen. Obviously, the best laid plans and all that stuff will probably be totally different by the time, or if they ever do come to paper. But yes, I have lots of ideas. The ideas is never the problem, ever. My favorite writers in the genre are Lisa Jewell and Tana French, obviously. I think I've read everything that Lisa Jewell has written. She's really good at she writes like literary thrillers, but her characters are so perfect that you would just follow them anywhere, and she makes you really care about them. And obviously, because it's a thriller, the stakes are always high, no matter what. So Lisa Jewell's like, I think somebody called her the queen of thriller, and she totally is. So they're my favorite writers in that genre.
What is your favorite Lisa Jewell book?
My favorite Lisa Jewell book is Then She Was Gone. It's called. Mm-hmm. It's about girl. Actually, it's telling you what it's about kind of spoils it, because you don't find out what it's about until the end. No spoilers, but it's very good, yeah. But everything she's written is really stunning.
Isn't that interesting? You don't find out what the book's about until the end.
It's hard to explain. I went to say something there, and then I was like, wait, that's
don't do any spoilers.
So I can't. Yeah.
Okay. Anya says, if you could travel anywhere for a writing retreat, where would it be? Great question.
Great question. If I could travel anywhere, I would go to California. So I could just do a writing retreat there, because there would be a beach and there would be probably margaritas, and I could just do some writing there. I would be happier because I'd be on a beach.
I mean, you've got some amazing beaches in Ireland, but probably not the weather for margaritas.
I would say definitely not the weather for margaritas or for being on the beach, really, most of the time. But yeah, I've been to California once and I would love to go back. And yeah, for a writing retreat is the best reason I can think of. So,
have you ever done a writing retreat before?
No, I have not.
No.
I've heard a lot of good things about them. I know people that have written like 90% of novels in like a week. So
Yeah, Karen says, don't spoil it. I'm currently reading it. There
Oh,
you
the
go.
Lisa Jill.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Fantastic. We've got one more in there somewhere, and if you guys got any more, we can fit probably two more in. Where's it gone? Okay. Kieran, how did you find the research process in terms of the police aspect of She and I?
Also a great question. So there are only certain things that you can Google, like for the really, really specific things, like what would happen in this exact scenario. I'm lucky that I have two, like, I was about to say police contacts. It makes them sound like they're my AIs or something. But I have two people that either are in or were in the police who were really useful and really happy to answer texts and emails that I sent at ridiculous o'clock, and they were really, really helpful, because it was just about the specifics. It was like, oh, my characters have just done this. Would that happen? And it was just a case of them going, yeah, I suppose that would happen. That's fine. Okay, thanks. So it was definitely, I was really lucky that I had them. And then everything else, I mean, you can find out so much on the internet.
I was going to say, but there's only so much you can get on the internet, surely, because if you were asking the internet how to get away with this or how does this happen, it can only release so much, right?
Yeah, I think so. So it was good that I had people on the inside nearly.
I would hope so anyway. Hannah, one more thing before we wrap this up anyway. Notice you didn't have an author website. Is that something you haven't done yet, or are you just not bothered with an author website at the moment?
I just haven't done it yet. I mean, once you asked me that, I was thinking, there's no good reason why I should be saying no here. So yeah, that's definitely something that I will look into, because I like Googling authors after I read books. So maybe someday someone will want to Google me too.
Well, I did. I tried to Google you, and 15 million Hannah Kings came up, one of which is another author, and you have not got a website. So I think you should get one.
Okay, thank you.
Especially now you've got a smash hit book out there. John says, "Where's the puppy?" Because you said you were bringing the puppy.
She was double booked. She double booked herself.
Unbelievable.
She's going to catch up on the podcast later.
Hannah, all I can say is thank you so much for joining me. Honestly, it's been an absolute pleasure, and I wish you all the success for your book, because your idea of success for writing is where you are right now, which I think is a wonderful thing to say of your stage of your career. So I imagine it's going to go up there in that direction, and I hope to see it on the screen very, very soon in the coming years. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you for your questions, everyone.
Thank you everybody else for joining us. It's fantastic to see you in the chat, and all your questions are wonderful. Again, check out Dale Roberts and Self-Publishing with Dale. That website I popped up earlier. Let me just find that again for you and go and check it out. It's definitely worth looking at. And where is it gone? There it is, fantasybookgiveaway.com. Go and check that out if you're into fantasy writing, or if you just want to find out what it's all about. I'm sure Dale will appreciate it, and I'm sure it will be beneficial to you as well. So please look after yourselves. As always, stay safe, and I will see you next week on the Writing Community Chat Show. From me, goodbye, and from Hannah, goodbye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.